I am now going to reveal 10 Native American secrets on how to sleep comfortably in a teepee. Some of them will definitely shock you, so be prepared to learn a lot of new things. We are used to thinking of a teepee as a simple conical hut, a primitive dwelling for nomads. But this idea is infinitely far from the truth. In fact, a teepee is a perfectly designed living system, refined over centuries of observing nature. Every element, from the angle of the poles to the location of the hearth, was part of an ingenious plan. This design allowed the teepee to retain heat in the bitter cold and provide coolness in the summer heat. It was not just a house, but a living organism that breathed with its inhabitants. Watch the video to the end, and you will learn how just one element of the design, which almost no one knows about, turned the icy winds of the prairies into a central heating system. What if I told you that everything you believed about the shape of a teepee is not true? At first glance, a teepee appears to be a perfect cone, but this is an optical illusion that hides the main secret of its stability and comfort. In fact, the base of a teepee is not a circle, but rather an oval or egg shape. The frame of the dwelling is asymmetrical, slightly tilted. The rear, steeper side, facing the prevailing winds, consisted of shorter and thicker poles. The front, gentler side, where the entrance was located, was longer and created additional interior space. This asymmetry was not accidental, but the result of precise aerodynamic calculations. Strong prairie winds did not hit the wall, but flowed around it along the steep rear side without creating excessive pressure. This made the teepee incredibly stable even during strong hurricanes, while a symmetrical cone would have simply been blown away. This shape also optimized the interior space. The hearth was not located in the center, but was shifted slightly forward toward the entrance. As a result, the smoke did not rise strictly vertically, but along the steeper rear wall, which improved draft and minimized smoke in the living area. The sleeping and resting area was located in the rear, more spacious part of the teepee. It was the most protected and warmest place, away from the entrance and drafts. People sat and slept along the walls, leaving the center free for movement and work. This thoughtful geometry was the result of centuries of observation and experimentation. It was not recorded in drawings, but passed down from generation to generation as part of sacred knowledge. Each family knew how to properly set up their home so that it would become a reliable fortress. The shape of the teepee also had symbolic meaning. The base symbolized the earth, the walls symbolized the path to the sky, and the open smoke hole symbolized the connection to the spirit world. Living in a teepee meant being in harmony with the universe. This complex geometry refutes the myth of the primitiveness of nomadic peoples. It demonstrates a deep understanding of the laws of physics and the ability to create perfect engineering solutions without complex tools. It was architecture born of wisdom. This design transformed a simple dwelling into a comfortable and safe refuge. It proves that efficiency does not always require symmetry. Sometimes the most ingenious solution is one that takes into account the imperfection of the surrounding world. It is interesting to see how this topic is perceived in different parts of the world. Where are you from? Do you agree that asymmetry can be more effective than perfect symmetry? Share your opinion in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Want to know the secret that changed everything in the lives of the inhabitants of the teepee? The central element of any teepee was the hearth. It was not just a place to build a fire, but the sacred and functional center of the entire dwelling, its warm, beating heart. The correct location of the hearth was critical for comfort and safety. As we have already mentioned, it was not located exactly in the center, but was slightly offset towards the entrance. This simple solution optimized air circulation and smoke removal. The hearth was a small depression in the ground lined with stones. The stones accumulated heat from the fire and then slowly released it throughout the night. Even when the flames died down, the stones continued to warm the space, maintaining a comfortable temperature. The wood for the hearth was chosen very carefully. Preference was given to dry and hard woods that burned slowly and produced a lot of heat but little smoke. Using wet or resinous wood could turn the teepee into a smoky trap. The fire in the hearth was not only a source of heat but also of light. During the dark hours of the day, it illuminated the interior, allowing people to do household chores, repair equipment, or simply socialize. Its flames created an atmosphere of comfort and security. A structure made of 3 sticks was often placed over the fire to hang a pot. This allowed food to be cooked right inside the dwelling, which was especially important in bad weather. The smell of cooking filled the house, making it even more cozy. The hearth also played an important social role. The whole family gathered around it to eat, share news, and tell stories. It was a place of unity that strengthened family and community ties. It would seem that an open fire inside a dwelling made of animal skins would be extremely dangerous. But what if I told you that there was a special system that made this structure completely fireproof and turned the icy draft into warm air? More on this in the next chapter. Are you ready for the shocking truth about the inner workings of a teepee? Most people don't know that a teepee had a second inner wall. This element, called a lining or dew screen, was one of the main secrets to comfort, especially during the cold season. This lining was a strip of treated hides or thick fabric about 2 meters wide. It was attached to the frame poles at shoulder height and hung down freely, stopping a few centimeters above the ground. This created an air gap between the main cover and the lining. This air gap was a key element of the entire heating system. Cold air that penetrated under the lower edge of the main cover did not immediately enter the living space. Instead, it rushed upward through this gap. As it rose, this cold air mixed with the warm air from the hearth. It also carried away smoke that could accumulate in the upper part of the teepee. This system created constant and proper air circulation. As a result, there were no drafts inside the teepee. People sitting in their places near the walls were protected from the cold air coming from the ground. The lining worked like a modern convection system, distributing warm air throughout the dwelling. Another important function of the lining was to protect against condensation. In cold weather, moisture formed on the inner surface of the main covering. The lining prevented this moisture from dripping onto people and belongings, keeping the interior dry. The lining was also useful in summer. It created additional shade and improved ventilation, protecting against the heat. The lower edge of the main covering could be lifted, allowing a breeze to flow freely through the air gap, cooling the dwelling. This inner wall was often decorated with drawings. These were images of important events in the life of the family, hunting scenes, or spiritual visions. Thus, the lining was not only functional, but also decorative and sacred, a kind of home chronicle. What I am about to show you was forbidden to be touched by outsiders. Controlling comfort in a teepee was a real art, and the main tools for this were 2 smoke vents. These ears or wings at the top of the teepee were not just decoration, but a complex ventilation control system. The vents were 2 rectangular or triangular pieces of skin attached to the top of the main cover. Each vent was controlled by a separate long pole that stood outside, resting on the ground. These poles could be used to change the position of the vents. The main function of the valves was to remove smoke from the hearth. They could be turned depending on the direction of the wind. Correctly installed valves created a draft that effectively drew smoke out, even with a weak fire. Controlling the valves required experience and knowledge. It was necessary to constantly monitor the wind and weather. Incorrect installation could result in smoke filling the entire dwelling, or, conversely, the wind blowing out the fire. In good weather, the valves could be opened completely to provide maximum ventilation. When it rained, they were closed together, leaving only a small gap for smoke. This prevented water from getting inside. During strong winds, the valves were set up to create an aerodynamic barrier. One valve was completely closed on the windward side, and the other was left slightly open on the leeward side. This protected the smoke hole and increased the draft. At night, the valves were usually closed to retain heat. However, they were never closed completely to ensure a supply of fresh air. This constant ventilation was important for health and safety. Controlling these poles was the responsibility of the lady of the house. She knew best how to adjust the breathing of her home depending on the weather. It was a subtle art that girls were taught from an early age. Thus, smoke valves were analogous to modern exhaust fans and ventilation systems. They allowed for precise control of the microclimate inside the home. This made life in a tight comfortable at any time of the year. Without this system, it would have been impossible to have an open fire inside the conical hut. It was the smoke vents that transformed a simple structure into a perfect dwelling. Would you be able to operate such a complex system? In the next chapter, we will talk about what the inhabitants of the teepee slept on. Are you ready to learn that their beds were more complex and comfortable than many modern beds? Comfortable sleep was only possible thanks to a well-thought-out system of bedding. It was not just a pile of skins, but a complex, multi-layered structure. Each layer performed its own important function. The base of the bed was made of willow rods or reeds woven into mats. These mats were laid directly on the earthen or grass floor. They created a flat surface and provided basic insulation from the cold ground. The next layer was a thick, durable bison hide with the fur facing outwards. It was laid on top of the mats. The coarse fur created an additional air layer that prevented the cold from penetrating from below. Then one or two more bison hides were laid down, but with the fur facing inward. These hides were much softer. They served as a mattress, providing softness and comfort. Special headrests or simply rolled up clothing were used as pillows. Sometimes small bags filled with soft grass or wool were made for this purpose. This allowed the head to be kept in a comfortable position. They covered themselves with light and warm skins of deer, antelope, or mountain sheep. These skins were much lighter than bison skins, but they retained heat very well. Sometimes several such skins were sewn together to make a large and warm blanket. This entire structure was not stationary. Every morning the bedding was carefully beaten and aired in the sun. This allowed them to get rid of moisture and maintain hygiene. At night the beds were laid out around the perimeter of the teepee with the head against the wall. Each family member had their own designated place. This created a sense of order and stability. What if I told you that each member of the family had their own personal chair in the teepee? These were not chairs as we understand them, but ingenious and multifunctional structures known as willow backrests. They were an integral part of the interior and played a key role in creating comfort. These backrests were a kind of mat made of smooth willow rods connected by tendons. The mat was about 1.5 meters long and about 1 meter wide. It was attached to a special tripod made of poles. During the day, this structure served as a comfortable chair. A person could sit on their bed, leaning back against the elastic willow backrest. This allowed them to relax their back muscles and get into a comfortable position for work or rest. Such backrests defined the personal space of each family member. They stood behind the bed, visually separating one sleeping place from another. This created a feeling of privacy, even in a shared living space. At night, the tripod could be folded up, and the backrest itself placed under the bedskins. This created an additional layer of insulation and made the bed even warmer. Some simply moved the tripod to the wall without dismantling it. Willow backrests were not only functional, but also beautiful objects. They were often decorated with paintings, beads, and or pendants. They were a source of pride and an indicator of family status. Making such backs was painstaking work. It was necessary to collect straight willow rods, sand them down, and carefully join them together. Both men and women mastered this art. The presence of such backrests completely changed the perception of life in a teepee. It was not just a floor covered with skins, but an organized and comfortable space. Everyone had their own comfortable place where they could rest after a long day. These simple structures demonstrate how important personal comfort was to nomadic peoples. They sought to make their homes not only practical, but also cozy. The willow backrest was a symbol of this aspiration. How important do you think such elements of personal space are in a shared dwelling? In the next chapter, we will learn why even the direction of the entrance to the teepee was of great importance for comfortable sleep. The placement of a teepee was not a random act. The choice of location and orientation of the dwelling in space was part of a whole science aimed at achieving maximum comfort. It determined how warm and light the house would be. Traditionally, the entrance to a teepee always faced east. This had both practical and deep symbolic significance. This orientation was an expression of harmony with the natural cycles of nature. From a practical point of view, the eastern location of the entrance protected the dwelling from the prevailing westerly winds of the Great Plains. The strongest and coldest wind load fell on the solid and most durable back wall of the teepee. This minimized drafts and heat loss. The morning sun shone directly into the entrance. Its first rays woke the inhabitants and quickly warmed the interior after a cold night. It was a natural alarm clock and heater that did not require firewood. During the day, the sun moved across the sky, illuminating and warming the south side of the teepee. At this time, the north side remained in the shade, creating a comfortable microclimate inside. This was a passive method of temperature control. In the evening, when the sun set in the west, The entrance was in the shade. This prevented the dwelling from overheating before bedtime. The interior remained pleasantly cool. The symbolic meaning was no less important. The east is the side of the rising sun, the beginning of a new day and a new life. Entering their home from the east, people received the blessing of the morning dawn each time. In addition to orientation, the choice of the campsite itself was also of great importance. Tipis were never placed on an open hill exposed to all winds. Preference was given to places protected by natural shelters. The ideal location was a river valley protected from the wind by hills or forest. Proximity to water and firewood was also an important factor. Careful selection of the location was the key to a safe and comfortable stay. This approach shows that indigenous peoples did not fight against nature, but sought to live in harmony with it. They carefully studied its laws and used them to their advantage. The orientation of the Tipi was one manifestation of this wisdom. Even the warmest bed would be useless if the cold from the ground penetrated the dwelling unhindered. Therefore, the Indians paid great attention to floor insulation. It was the first and most important line of defense against the cold. The floor of a teepee was never left bare earth. In summer, it was covered with a layer of fresh grass or branches. This created a pleasant, springy surface and protected against dust. During the cold season, the floor was prepared more thoroughly. First, the ground was carefully leveled. Sometimes the top layer of turf was removed to create a small depression that protected against the wind. Then the entire floor was covered with a layer of dry grass, moss, or pine needles. This layer could be several centimeters thick. It worked as an effective insulator, creating an air cushion between the ground and the living space. Reed mats could be laid on top of this insulation, and on top of them, bison skins were laid. Thus, the floor was a multi-layered pie that provided reliable protection from the cold. Some tribes had a custom of digging a shallow trench around the perimeter of the teepee. This trench served to drain rainwater that could seep under the cover. It also created an additional barrier against cold air. Great attention was paid to floor hygiene. It was regularly swept with special brooms made of twigs. The old grass bedding was periodically replaced with fresh bedding. Such careful preparation of the floor made life in the teepee much more comfortable. It was possible to sit and even lie on the floor without fear of catching a cold. This was especially important for maintaining health in harsh winter conditions. This approach once again demonstrates the attention to detail characteristic of indigenous cultures. They understood that in the struggle for survival, there are no trifles. Every element of their home was well thought out and functional. The grass mat, simple at first glance, was actually an important part of the dwelling's engineering system. It served the same function as modern thermal insulation materials. It was a simple and ingenious solution, gifted by nature itself. The entrance to the teepee was not just an opening in the roof. It was equipped with a special door that played an important role in retaining heat and protecting against the weather. This detail was also thought out to the smallest detail. The door was a piece of oval or rectangular skin that was slightly larger than the opening itself. It was often made from thick, durable bear or old bison skin. It was attached to the cover above the entrance with leather straps. This design allowed the door to swing freely. To enter or exit, it simply had to be swung to the side. After that, it returned to its place on its own, tightly closing the opening. In good weather, the door could be lifted and secured at the top. This provided additional ventilation. Sometimes it was simply removed for the entire summer. In cold or windy weather, the door fits snugly against the cover. To ensure a tight seal, additional weights could be sewn along its edges. This prevented the wind from getting inside. Sometimes the door was made double. This created a kind of vestibule, which provided even better protection from the cold. This design was especially common among northern tribes who lived in harsh winter conditions. The door was often decorated. A clan symbol was applied to it, symbolizing the family living in this teepee. It was a kind of calling card for the house. There were also rules of etiquette associated with doors. It was not acceptable to look into someone else's teepee without being invited. It was considered polite to cough or make another sound to announce your arrival. The door was not only a physical barrier, but also a symbolic one. It separated the orderly and safe world of the home from the wild and unpredictable outside world. Upon entering, a person left all their worries behind the threshold. This simple but effective detail completed the image of the teepee as an ideal refuge. It was the final touch in the system of protection from cold and wind. It proves that comfort is made up of many thoughtful details. The last but not least important secret to comfortable sleep in a tipi is the correct organization of the interior space. The arrangement of people inside the dwelling was strictly regulated. This was done not only for reasons of tradition, but also to maximize heat retention. As already mentioned, sleeping places were located along the perimeter of the tipi, along the walls. People slept with their feet toward the hearth and their heads toward the wall. This position was the most comfortable and safe. The most honorable and warmest place was at the back of the tipi, opposite the entrance. It was usually occupied by the head of the family. It was the most protected from drafts and the most prestigious place. Women and younger family members were placed on either side of the head of the family. Closer to the entrance were places for guests or older relatives. This arrangement reflected the social hierarchy of the family. The space at the entrance was often left free. Firewood, water, and some tools were stored here. It was a kind of hallway. On cold nights, people slept quite close to each other. The warmth of their bodies further heated the common space. It was a simple and effective way to combat the cold. Sleeping together also strengthened the sense of community and security. People felt like they were part of a whole, protected from the dangers of the outside world. This was really important psychologically. Even in sleep, life in a tipi was collective. There were no separate rooms or privacy as we understand it. However, as we have seen, personal space was created with the help of willow backrests and clearly defined sleeping places. This way of organizing life was perfectly suited to a nomadic lifestyle. It promoted family cohesion and the efficient use of resources. Everyone knew their place and their role. Thus, the warmth in the tipi was not only physical, but also social. It came from the fire in the hearth, the well-thought-out design of the dwelling, and the closeness of loved ones. It was this combination of factors that made sleeping in a tipi truly comfortable. We can see that the tipi was not just a dwelling, but a complex and harmonious system for living. Every element, from its asymmetrical shape to its willow backrests, was the result of centuries of wisdom and a deep understanding of nature. It was the architecture of survival, perfected to the highest degree. The secrets of comfort in a tipi are not magic, but precise engineering. Air circulation, insulation, proper orientation. All these principles that we use today in smart homes were known to the nomadic peoples of the prairies centuries ago. They created energy-efficient and environmentally friendly dwellings using only the materials available to them. Their home was not just a shelter from the elements, but a model of the universe, a place of power and harmony. Living in it taught them to be attentive to the world around them, to understand its rhythms, and to live in harmony with them. This legacy is an invaluable lesson for all of us. Which of these ancient engineering solutions do you think could be useful in modern architecture? Suggest topics for future videos that you would like to see on our channel in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on new research into the wisdom of ancient peoples.